Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Just Some Brothers, where we discuss issues relating to the Muslim Ummah and the wider society in welcome back to our second podcast. Hopefully, this time we won't have any creaks and noises. But again, we are using our iPhone and we're not really using a microphone and so on, due to budget constraints. Anyway, so our second podcast, we're going to be talking about corruption, and we've titled it Corruption East vs West, Differences or All the Same. Should be an interesting topic. And I have myself and Gaza.
How you doing, B? Long time no see, man.
Yeah, man. We've been busy with the whole Christmas period.
Not celebrating Christmas, by the way.
No, not celebrating.
Just been busy with work and.
We were working to make sure that our non-Muslim friends can enjoy Christmas like when they work, so we can enjoy Eid. So that's more of it. So much has happened.
It's unbelievable. So much has happened. In the, 4 weeks, maybe? 5 weeks?
Yeah, 4 or 5 weeks. So much has happened in the world. And as expected, I guess. But, one thing that stands out for me, is living in Britain is the corruption scandal. It is massive. Like what's going on, especially in the Tory government, and corruption after corruption, all these corruption issues that have come out in the news. It made me think. That's why I wanted to do this discussion. Actually, it made me think. Okay, you know what? When you speak about corruption, you think of like the Muslim world or the third world. You think of standard Bangladesh. At one point, Bangladesh was like the most corrupt country in the world. Even there were countries that were being in war-torn situation, somehow we managed to be on top. But it made me. I started thinking, like when you look at the level of corruption in those countries and the level of corruption in the Western countries, is it really different?
You know the thing that I always find surprising, in especially when people think about this topic, is it's automatically assumed that third world countries are corrupt and in the West they're not corrupt. That's the premise it just starts from. There is a procedure, there's law, there's a rule of law, and they're actually not corrupt. And if you find a case of corruption, it's a few here and a few there. It's not really the norm. Whereas Muslim countries, other third world countries, it's assumed that they're just corrupt, and it starts from that premise. And you have to convince the discussion you're having with somebody or with someone's thinking is actually, hold on a second, why are you saying Britain or the West is corrupt? You can't say that. There's that underlying premise. Now, don't get me wrong, over the last decade and especially over the last few years, that's kind of gone out the window. But even then, you have people that have that. And Western governments, the British government included, likes to sell that image. We are the rule of law. We are not corrupt. There's nothing wrong with us. Look at all these other countries, the ones that make the list, like Bangladesh, they're corrupt.
They're not corrupt.
You see, so that I've always found fascinating, simply because why do you start from there? Why do you start from the position that, hold on a second, Western governments aren't corrupt?
Well, it could be a whole host of things. I mean, can someone be corrupt when they're bombing the rest of the world to give their ideas of how human life should be run? America's out there bombing everyone, or got CIA, secret services toppling governments and whatnot. For what reason? To show that their way of life is the best. Now what I've got here is I got my laptop out this time so we can have information. A list of the corrupt countries in 2021. Now I don't actually know how they rate these. How do they consider who's corrupt? Is it through government? Is it through particular policies? Is it what individuals do? I don't actually know. I should have actually probably read it, but I just more wanted the list. Now the number one on the list. Do you want to take a guess?
Bangladesh.
No,
Huh?
Bangladesh is not the most corrupt country anymore, and it's actually quite far down. Actually, to be honest,
Really?
yeah, the number one country is Somalia. Well, still a
Okay.
Muslim country.
Okay. I mean, normally it seems to interchange between Somalia and
One, two,
Bangladesh.
three, four.
Huh?
So the first four countries automatically are Muslim countries. So it's Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, Yemen, and then it goes to Venezuela. And you have to go pretty far on the list before you get anyone that's really from the West. I am still zooming up. So like, wow, it doesn't actually give me numbers uh to show where, like, United States has just come up, yeah. So Chile's above them. So yeah, so when you start going to the bottom of the list, or well, they're not that far down, to be honest. It looks like they're in the top 30 of non-most corrupt countries. So the least most corrupt supposedly is New Zealand, Denmark, Finland, Singapore, Switzerland, Sweden, and then it's all what you would call developed countries and whatnot. Now, when you look at that list, when you look at the list, my thing is who's doing the list anyway. But more of like, look, the the West likes to give this idea that it's not corrupt and everything. There's law and order. And in my view, okay, if we look at the Tory government lately, and we start taking historical accounts, and we start Google searching corruption just in government before we go into any other area, you'll see, you know what? You're just as corrupt. You're just as corrupt as the third world. And if anything, they're propagating their ideas to the third world, to the Muslim world. So they're going to learn from you. They're going to learn from your ideas.
Yeah, you know the thing that I find surprising, well, not surprising, but thing that I find astonishing in some senses, is that at least in the third world, you look, what they're talking about, Bangladesh, you listed some of the countries there, yeah, Somalia, Yemen, Syria, these are war-torn countries, poverty is rife, people are desperate, yeah. You will find that in desperate times, people do things in order to make money, in order to make a living, and corruption takes rife, yeah, because people are desperate. Do you get me? They don't know where the next meal's coming from. They don't know if they're gonna live, etc., etc. Yeah, you don't have any of these issues in this country. You're not worried about where your next meal's coming from, really. Yeah, yeah. I know that currently people are facing high prices. I mean, I was telling you about it earlier. Yeah, shopping prices have gone up, fuel prices have gone up, etc., etc. But really, people aren't living on meal to meal. Most people, they've got a roof, they've got some food, etc., etc. Even the government here, they these are wealthy, generally speaking, wealthy people. The average minister salary, I think, is somewhere about 50 or 60 grand a year, yeah, which is more than most people get paid in this country, the average person. Yet you find that they are actually corrupt. They don't mind being lobbied, and it's not just the junior minister; it's the prime minister. It's the man at the top who's earning 150 grand a year, and he's got wealth from his family, wealth from other businesses that he's maybe involved in. Yet he's still corrupt. He will happily take in corruption, but he doesn't have any of the stresses of a life that may be of poverty that families across the Middle East, across the Muslim world have. And that's the shocking thing. Only thing is one person's corrupt because of poverty, and that's slightly understandable. You can understand that. The other one's just pure greed, and you can't fill their belly up. And even then, the bigger shocking thing in all of that is what? They get away with it. Nothing happens to them. So I remember many, many years ago when Tony Blair, I know he's not popular because of the knighthood, and there's about 700,000 people who have signed it because of the Iraq war, but I remember him telling BAE Systems, when they were being investigated by the Serious Fraud Office, that they should drop that investigation. The Serious Fraud Office should drop that investigation because it would harm their interests with the Saudis. And that investigation was dropped.
Yeah. So look,
Simple as that. But
just
this
for
isn't a recent thing. This has happened from before.
just to give examples, yes, I'm going to go into loads of examples now. Yeah, so here's an article from 17th of February 2020, where MP called Zara Sultana, and she did an opinion piece on the Metro, and her title was "I didn't realize how many gifts politicians were sent until I became an MP." Now gifts, yeah, in the third world, anyone who's from the third world or in Muslim countries mainly, yeah, you will realize that, you know what, how much bribes there are just to get just to get things done. The amount of bribes you got to do, and when you're over there, they don't call it so you say a bribe. They call it, gifts. So if you want something done, you say, look, why don't you have tea on me? Why don't you have lunch on me? You work so hard and so on. Where did they learn this from? Let's come to Britain, because that's the example we're going to use because we're from here. And she gets all these gifts. The first she said the first gift she got was from Google, and they gave her, like, some teacups and all of that. Heathrow sent her a food hamper, and it's just crazy. All these big companies, big firms are just sending gifts, and just effectively they're bribing them. They're letting them know, she was a new MP then, so they're just letting them, look, here's a little tiny little stuff for you, but you know what? If you do things for us properly, it's letting you know that, look, you're getting this for doing nothing. Imagine what you'll get from me if you do a few favors for me,
Yeah.
and that's basically bribery,
Yeah, it's basically.
and it's legal.
Yeah. Look, basically, what they're telling her is, we need you to scratch our back, and don't worry, we'll scratch yours too. And it's the big companies. It's not, the average man or the average woman isn't sending them any gifts. You're gonna find it's Google. You're gonna find it's Amazon at some point, and that's what you see. That even when these politicians leave the profession, so they're no longer politicians, they take up positions on boards of banks, of big corporations, advisors. What do you think they're there for? You think they're there for just because, they actually got some skills, or you think it's because of their links? That this person, like David Cameron, was the Prime Minister, he's got links in the Conservative Party, he's got links in the government, he's got his hands in other places, he can get things done for us.
So let me just type in the average wage of an MP.
This is so normal that people are no longer shocked by it.
So let me just get this. The average wage of an MP, yeah, is at the moment, from as of April 2020, is 81,900.
Bloody hell, man! I'm in the wrong profession.
Yeah, and then their gifts. We're going to talk about the expenses in a second. The reason I brought this up is that just to show you, this whole thing of the second
jobs.
Yeah, the second jobs. So I think recently, there was
I think it's James Patterson.
who. So they have second jobs.
Yeah.
And so some of these MP, the way some of these, I think whether it was Patterson's example, this one is, I'm not sure. So they will work for a large firm, a big corporation, and they were paying him £6 million a year for half an hour's work a week.
Yeah.
6 million for half an hour's work. Now, which company would do that? Who will pay someone for half an hour's work 6 million? Well, because of him, he lobbied to get that particular business government contracts worth over 140 or 200 million pounds. And money well invested, isn't it? For giving him 6 million, and we got 200 million pound contract out.
But this is the thing. That's what lobbying is. It's access. What the companies want, what corporate companies want, is access to government so they can win contracts. That just happens across the board. Yeah, that's with big companies. That's with Transport for London, you name it. It's all of that. They want access so that they can win contracts. They can get their man to say, this is my MP and he will get us contracts. The issue at hand is, this is all presented as this is legal. This is fine. There is no problem with this.
So you can see why they're not in the corruption list.
So none of them are in the corruption list. James Patterson, okay, he's lost his £81,000 position. He's no longer an MP. There's no criminal investigation against him. The police ain't investigating him. Nothing's happened to him other than he's lost his job, as in he's no longer an MP. And that's more to do with political reasons, because it looked bad for Boris Johnson.
And even then, companies know he'll still have links in the government, so it's
Absolutely,
worth hiring him regardless.
What's going to happen is they're going to wait it out. They're going to give it some time, and when this all blows over, you might find that he's already working for another MP as or something on the side, or as an MP for his advisor, etc., etc. Now, where I work here, if £5 goes missing, I could lose my job. Literally, my job is on the line. I could lose my job. If it's a lot more money, they might take me to court. And that's no, if you speak to the average person on the street, he'll tell you exactly, or she'll tell you exactly the same thing. It doesn't matter where they're working. If £5 is missing from the petty cash and you can't show the receipts on where it's gone, you may lose your job for that. Here with MPs, nothing happens. Yes, he's lost his job, as in he's no longer an MP. Yeah. Other than that, nothing's happened.
Nothing happens. And I used to read YouTube comments, and people used to say history will account them. And I'm like, I don't care about history. Who cares what history will account them? Yeah, he's living his life.
What's he done? He's literally broken the law.
Well, he hasn't, has he? Yeah. Morally, he has broken it. Yeah, but because the MPs, they make the laws. Yeah, they made sure that they can get away with this stuff. Like, look at this. I've just brought this up. Yeah, during the MP scandals. Yeah,
the expenses one.
Yeah, the expenses scandal.
See, we have to now.
The guy is claiming £210 yeah for his wife's shoes and nail varnish.
Yeah, but
how is that public? Like, you're supposed to get back money for what you use to do public work. How's this public work?
What does that tell you about the process? They actually filed that and they let it go through.
Yeah.
So they took it. He took his receipts. The people who are in the administration of the expenses fund or the expenses department for the parliamentarians actually put that receipt through. No one decided to think to themselves, hold on a second.
Buying second homes because they have to work closer to Westminster. So they probably live in the other end of the country. Bought a house in London and the taxpayer is paying for it. Wow.
The way they're circumventing that is they actually haven't bought that home. What they're doing is renting some friend's place out and then charging money for it and giving their friends some and keeping some themselves. That's what they're doing. Jackie Smith, I think, when she was the Home Secretary at the Labour when the expenses happened, was it her or was it a Conservative? It slips my mind. But one of them, they put in receipts to get they're taking out videos, pornography videos for their husband.
Well, Douglas Hogg, he submitted the claim for more than £2,000 for a moat around his country estate to be cleared. He also alleged that taxpayers helped to pay for full-time housekeeper at the cost of £14,000. And her car, his stables, piano to be tuned. Come on, man. And then he paid £4,488.48 on machines and fuels for his estate, including the lawnmower.
Things that the average man actually pays for to buy.
Yeah, so they're just
has nothing to do with their job. Mostly they've got lawn mowing and helping the government in some way or helping Parliament in some way. In all of this, they're all at it though. That's the other thing. It's not just the Conservatives. It's the members of the Labour Party, members of the Conservatives, the Liberals. Yeah, they're all at it. You find that a few that are not at it, they're the exception and not the norm. What you've ended up finding is that actually their greed, and that's what it is, greed. This isn't their poor. Like I said, I understand the poor person stealing from me. It's their greed. You can't fill their bellies. They just want more and more and more. And the way the system is designed, it doesn't stop any of that. So all that happens is normally, as with most cases, people find out, there is uproar, the media take it up, the government then announces there will be either a select committee investigation or there will be an independent investigation. How independent it is, they let it blow over. They release a report which nobody bothers looking at. They put in some recommendations which doesn't change anything in the system, and then the cycle starts again.
Yeah.
And the
Or
cycle starts again.
if it's too big, they resign. Like Matt Hancock, during the
See,
lockdown, him having an affair. It's too big.
See, this is the strangest thing. The man is the health secretary. He's responsible for over 100,000 deaths. And what does he resign for? For touching some other woman up. And literally, that's what it is. I mean, this is the madness that we live in, and this is the rule of law. This is
And they're allowed to do this. The same Matt Hancock during the lockdown spent over £50,000 on takeaway, because they were working, and obviously they can't go and eat out and stuff, so they did takeaway. What, £50,000 worth? You couldn't get normal food. You had to get it from a 5-star Michelin restaurant or whatnot. You had to get £50,000 for just lunchtime. God knows what they did at dinner or breakfast. £50,000.
Again, nothing will happen. All that's happened to him is he's no longer the health secretary. He's still the MP for his area. Now, other than that,
he's still getting his 81,000. But the poor fella, he's struggling so badly that he still needs a second job probably.
And the problem that you have is in the West, in the UK, in other countries, what you find is that they've just legalized the corruption. That's all it is. The difference is, at least in our countries, in the Muslim countries, Muslims recognize as this is corruption. Regardless of what the government says, they say this is corruption. We understand it from Islam that this is corrupt. In this country, in democracies where, like I said, they have the rule of law. They like to talk about, we have the rule of law, we are a civilized society. They've just legalized the corruption. They always find a way to continue doing it.
But do you know what the crazy thing is here? The crazy thing is that in the papers, when you talk to people on the street, they will say this is corruption, this is corruption. Now, like you said here, when you say corruption, usually it's a bad thing. And corruption means that there is a consequence for being caught doing that corruption. There should be a consequence. Like you said, £5 go missing, you're out the job. Or corruption in some other scale, you land yourself in jail. They call it corruption in the media. They call it corruption on the streets when people are talking amongst them or whatever. But there's no end result. Like you said, they're not accountable for nothing. They might resign. That's about it. But they'll find another position in government, or they'll be brought back in later. Companies will take them because of their influence. There is no consequence for their action.
I mean, take the Prime Minister,
Absolutely nothing.
And his flat, that's been in the news this week.
Yeah.
He got a law to pay for his flat, to do it up, and then he paid him back. That is well established that happened, but yet somehow the report has found he actually hasn't done anything wrong. After all the itty-bitties and the investigations and looking at it, and okay, he could have done something here better and brought this to light a bit better, but really he hasn't done anything wrong. The independent investigation has found, actually, I haven't broken any rules. You got some other guy who's in the law lords to pay for your flat. You're the Prime Minister. It's not like he came to my house and paid for my living room, yeah? Paid for the Downing Street. You think he did it for free? And this is the problem, that they don't appreciate that I hold a position, and in that position, I have to be squeaky clean. There is no concept. They just don't have that. I have to be squeaky clean. I can't just not do corruption. The perception is that I'm also not doing corruption. That just doesn't exist.
We say in the Muslim world that the politicians, that people in government are there for the money. They're there, they're corrupt, and they'll do whatever is necessary to make money. They're millionaires. The top ruler will be a billionaire, and that's what they're there for. Everybody knows you take a government job for that money. And you know what? It's the same here. Yeah? But the funny thing is when you talk to people about it and you talk like this, yeah, they're with you. They understand it. The difference is in everyday life, it's not like you're in Bangladesh. Over there, you're feeling it. You're feeling that corruption because you might not eat tonight. You you understand? You're in all these problems. Whereas here, because people are quite generally we're comfortable. Yeah, we got our problems and whatnot, but most of the country is usually comfortable, and they don't feel their corruption. When they feel their corruption, people actually move. But because they don't really feel it, it's just more of scumbag, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's outrage which then subsides. Come the general election, they'll end up still voting for these people. It's not that these people don't stand. They stand and they will end up voting.
They'll lie.
They may rebel against. So, example, James Patterson's constituency has rebelled against him, and they've gotten a Liberal Democrat. Wait until the next election comes. You'll find another Conservative in there. For them, it's just, oh, we just want to show we're a bit angry. But the real issue at hand here is there is no such thing as there is no corruption in this country, or corruption isn't that bad. It's exactly the same as, in some senses, it's worse. Because like I said, at least in our countries, people see it for what it is and it's treated for what it is. It's just that they feel that what you're going to do, the government is messed up anyway.
And the fact that they just made everything legal.
You see, here, they legalize it, they cover it, the media makes a hoo-ha, but they're involved in some cases as well when it's in their benefit, and it just gets blown over. And the strange thing I have always find is, at least in the Bangladesh, the government isn't saying, hey, the rest of the world, be like us. Saudi's not telling the rest of the world, be like us. These countries actively got to be like us. We got all these things. We've got the rule of law. We've got a justice system. No one's above the law. All of this type of stuff. They go around preaching to the world while at exactly the same time behaving in exactly the same way as the corrupt leaders in the Muslim world. It's just that the only difference is they legalize it here, or they kind of will give a small apology, or it's a political issue, it will blow over. Don't worry.
Yeah.
See, you can't have a political issue in Saudi, it will blow over. Everyone knows the MBS is corrupt. It's just he's a tyrant.
Yeah.
So
no, end of the day, it's quite simple. If you're a scumbag, your child will be a scumbag, and the Western governments are scumbags, and their children in the Muslim world, those MBS and all the rest of them, Hasina and all of them, what are they? Scumbags. So it works out perfectly, really, doesn't it? Now, moving on from politics, you can see the corruption there and whatnot, yeah. But just to show you a different type of corruption is how people who are wealthy and who have influence are also protected. This is corruption. So example here that I've first got up is Eton student who shared appalling abuse photos of on his dorm computer of children as young as 2 being raped. Is spared jail. And why is he spared jailed? Is because his dad is a top lawyer in the UK. So his dad's got good influence.
Sounds about right.
And there's another one where a top barrister son was found with cocaine and ecstasy, and he just got and he was doing all sorts, and he got just a police caution.
Yeah.
And he got to keep his job at his dad's law firm.
Yeah, I mean,
if I was caught with cocaine and ecstasy in my workplace, mate, believe me, I won't be keeping my job.
Again, yeah, come from rich families, have their fathers' families are well linked, maybe to the judiciary system, maybe to the government in some cases, maybe to other parties, and basically they know how to get their children off. Whereas, and we have to be honest here. Chances are that these are white kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. The judiciary doesn't want to. It looks for ways out. They like to say we're not racist, but everybody knows that there is a problem of racism within the police, within the judiciary. Whereas if it was an Asian, a black man, anyone of color, probably would have got many, many, many years in prison. for committing exactly the same crime. It's just that their parents are well connected, and that's, again, it's well known that these things happen. You see, it happens on the elite level, it happens on the political level.
I'm just trying to, if you look at the, the financial crisis, some of these bankers and what they did cost billions for the ordinary person. Some even stole money, to be honest, and a lot of them got away with it. Some were given very, very small sentences. Yeah, whereas a ordinary guy, let's say he did something wrong, he robbed a place or whatever, he's looking at 15 years, 10 years. And these guys who literally stole billions, put the country on its knees, and they got away with it. Why? Because power and influence, corruption, as we say. And this is the point I'm trying to make. So if you look at the Western world, so we've looked at it enough. We don't need to go into any more examples or anything. But if we look at the West, who are propagating these ideas of freedom, democracy, rule of law, capitalism in all its forms. This is, in the West, is where they effectively establish it correctly, and they propagate and move that to the Muslim world and other developed countries that are non-Muslim, and we have the same problems, if not worse. So what does that tell you about capitalism? What does that tell you about democracy? What does that tell you about their supposed rule of law and whatnot?
You see, the thing that you have, especially in developed democracies, is they make the rules, they break the rules, they change the rules in their favor. They are the legislators. So they make the rules, and when they need to, they'll say, we need to change this rule. So the James Patterson case again, they wanted to change the rules, and they tried to make out there was some procedural problem. Really, they're trying to save him and just change the rules to make it okay. And you have, in the Muslim world, you just have tyrants at it. Yeah, that's one of the things. But one of the things, especially that Islam gives us, as Muslims, is we can't change the rules. Our rules, generally speaking, are fixed. So, as an example, what you can't do is, as the Muslim ruler who's implementing Islam, he can't then say to, you know what, there are these many categories of zakat, doesn't matter, I'm just going to bang another one in there for myself. It won't go, it won't wash with the ummah, because everybody knows there is a certain number of categories that zakat is given, and it has to go to these people. The fact that he can't change the rules, nor is he above them, he's subject to them. So the ruler of the Muslim, he is subject to them. And everyone knows the famous case where a Jewish man stole a shield from Ali. They went to court, and the judge, who was a Muslim judge, ruled in the favor of the Jewish man. Why? Because he said to Ali, you don't have enough evidence. So the fact that now they look at us and think, you're rigid. They say to us, see, because you can't change the rules. Actually, the fact that we can't change the rules tells that people can't get away with it. There's a fixed rule, and that cannot be changed even by the ruler. He's subject to it. It can't be changed by his governors or anyone like that. In this country, they have rules, and when those rules get in the way, when the law gets in the way, they change it. It's no problem. They will get in there, and especially if you've got an 80-seat majority, you don't need the opposition to help.
Everybody wants to smoke weed. It's time to legalize it.
Why do you think they're finding cocaine in Parliament?
Yeah, that's all over the place. How is Prince Andrew getting away with? Effectively getting away with...
The Speaker of the House has to announce, we found cocaine in the toilet in Parliament. Can you imagine that?
Can you imagine? And, just going on, even like...
So the fact that they can change the rules and literally make them up as they're going along. But hey, everybody else, all the other citizens, you're subject to those rules though. And the police will come knocking, your companies will fire you if they have to. They will run an investigation. They will take you to court, etc., to extract the money if it's a large amount. MPs do that, no problem. Nothing of the sort will happen.
One rule for us, one rule for them.
I can't. I work for a company. I can't go and say to that company, "Hey, I've got a friend. He owns a cab company," as an example. He'll do all the taxing from us. They'll say, "No, you have to go through HR. There has to be procurement." Big words, fancy, nice words. But politicians do it. Elite people do it. You don't see any of these processes being followed.
And exact copy is in the Muslim world, and only difference is they'll just say, "Yeah, we're doing it. Who cares? You say anything, we'll get rid of you." And
you disappear.
Who did they learn from? Their masters in the West. And we have these people. We have people over there who are propagating that we need to be like the West. We need, look at them. They're so law-abiding. Look at their people. They're so law-abiding. Well, no, they're not so law-abiding. If anyone can do make a quick buck, they will. Their politicians are as corrupt as yours. The difference is, our ones are just open about it. Their ones, they'll just hide it and pretend that, they're so law-abiding and all the rest of it. Take-home message.
Take-home message, one, systemically, politicians, whether they're here or in the Muslim world, they're the same. Corruption is the same.
So,
but in the West,
would you say East and West is the same?
The corruption in the East and the West, same, especially at an elite level. The only difference in our countries is when the corruption happens by our people who are at the lower levels, it's due to desperation. That I can forgive. I've been to Bangladesh enough times, and you can tell someone's trying to rip you off, yeah? He's selling you something at a price that he shouldn't be selling it to you at, but he's desperate because he's poor. Do you get me? Whereas here, you're trying to work out why is the elite, who's got millions and millions of pounds, who are worth billions and billions of pounds, trying to rip people off for a couple of grand. Why is a guy who's on 80,000 a year, this isn't 80,000 as a one-off, it's 80,000 a year, trying to rip people off on expenses for 4 grand?
Maybe he gets a kick out of it.
There is really, and this is my point, they're just greedy, and that's what it breeds. That's what capitalism here breeds. Greed. That's what, when you talk about the bankers, greed. And what happened? They brought the country to its knees, that the banks had to be bailed out by the average man. The man who's got no money, who's struggling as he is, he's having to bail out these billions and billions and billions pounds worth of banks who are worth that much in the stock market, as an example. Yeah? So there's that element of it, the greed. The greed stems from the fact that they don't have any accountability. They like to talk about accountability. They like to talk about the rule of law. They like to talk about the cops and the judges, etc. Nice fancy talk. Yeah, they're all independent. A lot of rubbish. That's a lot of rubbish. The way it works is they scratch each other's backs. They will cover for each other, and when they need to bury anyone, expose so they can get ahead. So remember, Gordon Brown wanted to get ahead of Tony Blair. Now Boris Johnson's in trouble. Rishi Sunak wants that position. Priti Patel wants that position. Oh my God, if Liz Truss gets that position, yeah? Can you imagine, yeah? The cheese, right? But they will happily stab them, their Prime Minister, their leader, in the face. No problem. Not in the back, they'll stab him in the face to get that position. And you can imagine Boris Johnson did that to Theresa May. That's just the way they work. There is nothing honourable about that. I find it amazing that people still, some people, not, it's breaking in the mind of people, but some people still have to say, actually, you know what, it's not corrupt, it's a really good place, there's the rule of law. And you get that in our countries simply because a false image is sold there. It's present, whereas anyone who lives in the West, Muslim or not, doesn't matter, they will tell you, man, it's nothing like that, that's a lot of rubbish. You get me? That image, they won't even recognize it themselves. It's just, it's projected like that, and we've got to look beyond that. That corruption, same, it's the same in the West, and in some senses it's worse simply because, like I said, at least in the Muslim countries, I understand why people lower down do it. Because of poverty, desperation, they're trying to get ahead. Why on earth, I don't get for the life of me, they do it here, considering that they can actually be relatively comfortable. other than it's just greed.
There could be very many theories. Maybe some is that, look, if I do this here, I keep myself in a position of power, and a position to continuously make money. Anyway, before I end it, my 2 pence on it would be that, look, as Muslims, we need to be aware of these things that are going around us. Capitalism breeds this, and hopefully we've given the enough examples, and our discussion was about just showing that, there isn't a difference between East or West. The corruption level is the same. Why? Because the thinking is the same, the idea is the same, the system that is implemented over mankind is the same. So you're going to get the same corruption whether you're in the East or the West. In the Muslim world, there are many people who are pushing towards, we need to be like the West, because there's a mirage being thrown in their eyes that the way they will push it, they don't. You can see that they don't actually push it by look at their politics, look at their rule of law. They actually show their infrastructure. They look at you look at the roads, you look at the buildings, you look at stable electricity, and they push these type of things, and they'll say that, look, they're able to do this because of their thinking. No, infrastructure is infrastructure. Germany was bombed in World War II, in World War One. It still became what it is today. Why? Because infrastructure you can build in many years. You got the money, the expertise, the engineers, you can do it. But ideas and thinking is what brings a society out of what it is. And what we see is when we want to take wholesale from the West, we bring the corruption with it. We bring the nastiness with it. Why are people the way they are in the West? Why are they greedy? Why is there knife crime? Why is there pedophilia and whatnot? Look at the people who are ruling above them. The people who are meant to be the most honorable in society are the worst in society. Pedophilia is rampant in the Tory party. They just hid it. They're thieves. They're corrupt. They're liars. They're cheaters. And they are a reflection of the people. And we need to be very, very aware of our surroundings. And we cannot call for this corruption anymore to be in our countries. We need to go for the real pure water, which is Islam. So inshallah you enjoyed our discussion. If you agree with us, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channels, share it, and comment if you disagreed with us and stuff. Maybe there's some things you agreed, some things you didn't. Doesn't matter, put in the comment and keep it civil, and inshallah we'll see you the next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.